hope you can all hear me very well. I hope you can all hear me very well. All good? Okay. So let's start with this. The Okavango Delta shouldn't really exist. The first time I read about this online, I thought, this is very shocking. But if you think of it, it actually makes sense. Who in their wildest dreams would ever envision a scenario like this in the middle of the desert? Not just any desert, one that means a waterless place or the great thirst, the Kalahari Desert. How ironic can that be? The Okavango Delta is a true freshwater oasis that can span to up to 8,500 square miles, almost the size of New Jersey. It is the only permanent body of water in this place, and this water sustains life. Over 2,000 species are registered in the Okavango Delta, including the largest population of African elephants in the world, and over 200,000 mammals. Think of lions, buffalo, wild dog, leopards, giraffes, you name it. It will be there, thriving, just as wild as it was 10,000 years ago. All of this is because of the water that comes to this place. 10 years ago, a team of explorers have decided to survey this land in a way that very few have done before. Equipped with dugout canoes and just the right amount of craziness, the National Geographic Okavango Wilderness Project has been crossing the Okavango Delta to try to understand how it works from within. A journey that changes the perception that we as humans have of the wilderness. So your first VR episode is to give you a sense of what it is like to be in such an expedition, so close to the wilderness. So if you could put your headsets on, and like Wes said, if anything goes wrong, just raise your hand. On this one, just try to explore, look around. If you actually look behind you, you will see my brother sitting there, so you're fine.
That first moment sitting by myself on an island in the Okavango Delta was the most profound moment of my life. It is, to me, a wilderness beyond comparison. The Okavango Delta is Africa's last remaining pristine wetland wilderness. It is an oasis in the middle of the Kalahari Desert, a sanctuary for the incredible wildlife and biodiversity of this region. A vast patchwork mosaic of channels, floodplains, lagoons, and thousands upon thousands of islands. Here you can find the abundance of life all around you. The annual flood from Angola creates these rich pastures in the Mambo area for animals like these zebra at the driest time of the year.
All right, guys. So this is where it starts. Right now is the beginning of the expedition. We've all been preparing, getting our stuff together, getting our minds right, packing, repacking. Our boats are looking great, they're floating, and this is where it all starts.
This is the most important time to be an explorer, to be a scientist working in these last wild places.
What we're doing here on these expeditions are large-scale research transects across the Okavango Delta. We're using things like birds and fish and aquatic insects, aquatic vegetation, the habitat surrounding us, wildlife like elephants and lechwes as indicators for change across the entire system. We're on the water. We have no engines with us. You're incredibly tired. Your arms are in pain, your shoulders, your feet get very sore, your hands get very sore. And you find yourself transcending that. It's like walking on water. It's flowing, silent, if you're silent, connected. When I'm on the mokoro, I watch every ripple, every eddy. Everything has to be explained. Every sound. You're connected to everything around you. But it also connects us to the reality of the water. Everything here is water dependent.
There's nothing to grab on. It's moving.
You're just cutting them in half, eh? Yep.
Sometimes we are late or unlucky and the water is gone. So we have to drag across dry land.
Now, as we go deeper, we go closer and closer to the sanctuary, to the central wilderness, to the Mambo area, to Madinari. So over the next 2 days, please, be present.
We're going into a place where animals don't know humans anymore. It's a place that people don't go. So we have to respect this place. We have to respect the animals that are there.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's very tough to call that place my office. It's very tough. But some of you might ask, why? Why would someone leave the comfort of their house and the deliciousness of their food and the presence of their family to endure physical, emotional, sometimes hormonal drainage for days on end, weeks, sometimes months? Why would someone get out of their couch and be in a mokoro for 8 hours, paddling, pushing, poling, and facing some of their biggest fears? I personally am absolutely terrified of crocodiles. So why would I torture myself that way? The answer is actually quite simple. It's to be humans, but a different type of human, a human that is connected to everything, from the million stars above and the infinite sand below, and everything else in between. A human that goes beyond sight, one that can hear, can feel, can sense, can taste, can almost touch. A human that belongs to the noisy silence of the wilderness, that belongs to something so much greater and bigger than himself. And as you accept the wilderness, as you accept to be part of the wilderness accepts you back. So you don't just exist, you coexist. You respect, and you are respected. And you get to share incredible memories and space with some of the most unbelievable creatures that you know. And they get to share the same space and memories with you. So the next experience, this was just for you to get some rest from that tiring experience you just had. So the next one, hopefully, will give you a sense of what it feels like to be a different type of human, to share your humanity with different species that are, quite frankly, stronger than you, but that will respect you the same way. So if you could please put your headsets again for your second episode. This time around, try to go beyond your sight, try to hear everything around you. Just pretend that you're there, present on that moment.
It's okay. It's okay.
To have a giant elephant in front of you, interacting with you, connecting with you, smelling you, listening to you, looking at you, telling you to stop, telling you to go away, telling you to stay, I'm fine with you. Those interactions are powerful to me. Elephants are the guardians and stewards of this wilderness. This is their home, the living room of Africa. Botswana is home to the world's largest elephant population, with almost 140,000 elephants interacting with tourists and local people every day. With no hunting in Botswana, there is no threat, yet there is still conflict. Very few elephants are killed by poachers each year in Botswana, but every year the number of elephants poached increases. More poachers are coming for Botswana's ivory, and we need to be ready. Protect the people, and they will protect the wildlife. We stopped to have lunch at an elephant crossing, not knowing that the migration was about to arrive. This elephant died of natural causes. The tire tracks you can see up to the elephant carcass are from a military vehicle there to remove the tusks for storage. The smell this close to the carcass is unbearable. The lions spent the whole day at the carcass. All attempts to feed were half-hearted, full bellies, and the unappetizing smell. Towering above us, as we set up camp for the evening, is the Simbira baobab, estimated to be over 2,000 years old. Every evening, I take a moment to sit alone, quietly, and just listen as the delta comes to life.
Okay. You can all get your headsets off. You'll have to look at me now, unfortunately. So the more time you get to spend in the wilderness, the more you actually start relating to it. In one of those elephant crossings, there were two sibling elephants playing with each other, one clearly smaller than the other one. And they were pushing and pulling each other until the smallest one fell into the mud. All of a sudden, it got up, started sprinting towards his mother, yelling to the world, whatever it is. In that moment, I thought, my mother would have loved to see it, because that's exactly what I used to do when I was a child. I couldn't beat my brother, so I would just go and tell mommy. So you start creating this relationship with these creatures, and you start realizing that they are living beings with histories, with a purpose, and whose interactions changes the way the whole dynamics of the system works. But all of this, as I mentioned, depends on the amount of water that flows into the delta. And 95% of that water comes from Angola. See, the Okavango Basin is really big, so big you can actually see it from space. And because the amount of water that comes into the delta has been decreasing with time, the team decided to do something slightly even crazier, which is spend 4 months in the river from the Quito source, which is one of the main tributaries to the delta, all the way down to the middle of the Kalahari, again, in canoes. 121 days. 4 months to understand how the system changes and how we can use that change to improve existing conservation policies or even create new ones if need be. Ooh, that was wrong. On that expedition, I like to call this picture, "Where's AJ? Finding the Girl." On that expedition, my job was not just to dilute the testosterone, but actually to study the fish. There was a multinational, multidisciplinary team from scientists to storytellers to journalists, because we wanted to look at every possible context and every single perspective and include it in a broad conservation scheme. This expedition to me was not just professional, it was also personal. See, the Quito source is actually located where the epicenter of the Civil War was. 27 years of landmines and conflict in this area kept it isolated for a very long time. And it's a memory that most Angolans still have up to this date, including myself. The movie is going to stream tomorrow at 2:20, in case anyone is interested, but spoiler alert, what we saw, in the highlands of Angola, we found this incredible system that keeps the whole basin together. Because it was surrounded by mines and conflict just kept it isolated for so long, it was left untouched. So we consider it now to be one of the intact miombo forest in sub-Saharan Africa, holding the water that falls from the rain and keeping it in its peat bog, which holds a lot of water, and then releasing it slowly through the system. So basically working as a sponge that keeps the whole system together. And as we literally dived in, we found a wilderness of its own, a universe that functions with its own rules. It is, if the Okavango is seen as a single organism, this place would be the lungs and the heart of it, keeping it together and alive. And the more we got to work with it, if you see in the movie, we hardly saw any wildlife on that expedition, but we went back and we put camera traps. And those camera traps told us that we still have everything, from wild dogs to lions to leopards to roan antelopes. If you think of something that should be there, it probably still is, but shy, very afraid because of the consequences of war and hunting. 24 potentially new species to science show how this place is incredible for science and for conservation. But as war created this protection screen for wildlife, created this wildlife hub, it also greatly affected the human communities that are in the system. See, this place was once called the land of hunger because of the extreme conditions that were seen during the Civil War. The local Uchazi people through time have lost their connection with the surrounding environment. They have missed the gap of inheritance for natural belonging. Some of the elders are still aware of it. They still remember the intimate share that they have with nature when they tell us stories about the mokisi or the dikisi-kisi, which are the mythical creatures that guard these rivers and forests. But the link to the earlier generations is gone. And while working with these communities through the years, I realized that pure science is not going to do it by itself. So that's when I shifted from taxonomy to working with communities. And that's where my PhD project came together. It is to help them reconnect to their surrounding environments, to give them ownership of their own land, the true guardians of their own land, is to create a community-based natural resource management model that looks for their needs, for their beliefs, for their traditions, for their aspirations, for them. They are the center, and they are in control of their lives and of their future. It's a community-based natural resource management model that looks at activating conservation from within, where they can have benefits of the wilderness that they belong to and that they can protect for. It's one that provides a better future for young and coming generations of both humans and wildlife alike. One that protects the wilderness by protecting its people, my people. And one that hopefully in the future will help us save this incredible source of life, the backbone of the Okavango Delta. Thank you.